The world of the Forresters, Logans, and Spencers was already a delicate balance of power, love, and betrayal. But everything changed the day Brooke Logan collapsed during a private meeting at Forrester Creations. What began as a minor health scare turned into something far more serious, a diagnosis that sent shockwaves through her entire world. The doctors spoke in cold clinical terms: autoimmune complications, degenerative decline, but what Brooke heard was the ticking clock of unfinished business. She wasn't afraid of dying. What haunted her was the truth she had buried for over 3 decades. Late at night, alone in her Bel Air estate, she pulled out a locked chest from the back of her walk-in closet. Inside were documents, photos, and a faded baby bracelet marked Logan. As she reviewed the contents, her hands trembled. Not from illness, but from guilt. 30 years ago, Brooke had a child out of wedlock, the result of a forbidden affair with a man who, if known publicly, would have destroyed her family's reputation. Rather than face disgrace, she disappeared for several months under the guise of business abroad, gave birth in secrecy, and signed the baby away to a closed adoption under a different name. She returned as if nothing happened. She buried it all: the pain, the shame, the memory. Now, as she wrote a new will, she couldn't ignore the shadow of that child anymore. If this was the end, they deserved the truth and perhaps a share of what they were denied. But truth in the world of the Logans was never simple. Brooke had built a legacy, raised children in privilege and ambition, and stood at the center of nearly every power play in the fashion empire's history. She couldn't predict how one revelation would set fire to all of it. When her family learned that she was amending her will, whispers began. Ridge was the first to question it, confronting her gently, but Brooke remained vague. It was Hope who finally cornered her, pressing until the dam broke. In a shaky voice, Brooke told her daughter everything: the affair, the pregnancy, the adoption, the silence. Hope's disbelief was palpable, her voice cracking as she asked the unthinkable, "Do I have a brother or sister out there?" Brooke nodded. And with that, Pandora's box was open. With the help of Carter Walton, Brooke discreetly hired a private investigator. It didn't take long to track the trail of sealed documents and back-alley adoption facilitators. The name that came back rocked her to the core: Ava Sinclair, now a successful tech entrepreneur in San Francisco, born baby Logan on July 17, 1995. Ava had no idea who her birth mother was. Raised by loving parents who had both passed in recent years, she had built a name for herself from the ground up. She was smart, driven, and fiercely independent. When Brooke reached out through her attorney, Ava initially rejected the contact. But curiosity eats at even the strongest people. After weeks of silence, she responded, agreeing to meet in private, away from the cameras and socialites. That first meeting was raw. Brooke could barely speak. Ava was cautious, polite, but kept her distance. The conversation unfolded like an excavation of a ruined city. Bit by bit, Ava learned who her mother was, the dynasty she had come from, and the life she was never given. She showed no anger, only cold calculation. "I don't want your apologies," she said flatly. "I want to know what your world is going to do now that I'm a part of it." Brooke, moved by her daughter's resolve, opened the door wide. She invited Ava into her family, her company, and eventually, her will. That's when everything detonated. Hope was the first to spiral. Her entire identity was built on being Brooke's chosen heir, the model daughter, the moral center of the Logan name. Suddenly, there was another daughter, older, with claim to the same legacy. Ridge was blindsided. He had always forgiven Brooke's flaws, her past affairs, her chaos, but hiding a child for 30 years was beyond comprehension. The fracture between them, long papered over by habit and history, began to split irreparably. Katie and Donna tried to maintain balance, but even they couldn't hide their discomfort. Thorne returned from Europe, summoned by whispers of scandal, and demanded to know what this meant for the family trust. Bill Spencer, always circling like a shark at the scent of blood, began making overtures to Ava, tempting her with investment deals, media coverage, and control. Ava, now fully aware of her power, didn't back down. She walked into Forrester Creations not as a lost child looking for belonging, but as a businesswoman staking her claim. She challenged Hope on creative direction, questioned Ridge's authority, and began working with Zend on a new digital fashion line that threatened to overshadow the existing collections. Steffi, initially aloof, saw a kindred spirit in Ava's ruthlessness and offered her support. An alliance was born. Tensions exploded at a board meeting when Brooke formally announced Ava's legal addition to the family trust and her appointment as a strategic advisor to the company. Hope stood up and walked out. Ridge refused to sign the confirmation paperwork. Eric tried to be the patriarchal voice of calm, but even he couldn't deny the shift in power. The Logan legacy had a new player, one that didn't play by their old emotional rules. The media caught wind of the secret heir, spinning stories of betrayal and scandal. Paparazzi followed Ava everywhere. Journalists dug into her past, her relationships, her startup history. Brooke was hounded for interviews, her every step scrutinized. Meanwhile, Ava remained unbothered. She launched a new Forrester subsidiary focused on virtual fashion experiences, gaining massive online traction. Stock prices surged. The board began backing her. Hope, growing increasingly isolated, sought solace in Liam, but even he was captivated by Ava's intelligence and ambition. A subtle rift opened between them. Thomas, always drawn to chaos, approached Ava with a proposition: form an alliance and sideline the rest of the family. "We don't have to burn it all down," he whispered. "Just enough so we can rebuild it the right way." Ava didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. Brooke, watching all of this unfold, felt a mixture of pride and dread. Her daughter was everything she had feared and everything she had hoped for. A self-made woman, a fighter, but also someone who had grown up without the emotional code of the Forresters: no loyalty, no sentimental weakness. She played the game, but only to win. When Brooke's health began deteriorating faster, the question of succession became unavoidable. Hope demanded control. Ava cited performance metrics. Ridge argued for traditional structure. Eric proposed splitting the company. Lawyers circled. Lines were drawn. The company that had once survived affairs, deaths, betrayals, and decades of drama now faced its most intimate war: sister against sister, future against legacy, blood against name. And Brooke, frail but lucid, realized her final mistake. By hiding the truth, she hadn't protected her family, she had split it in two. Her secret child had returned not as a daughter, but as a reckoning. The Logan dynasty would never be the same. And the bold and the beautiful were about to become something far more dangerous: broken, bitter, and irreversibly changed. And as the sun set on the Forrester estate, Ava stood alone on the balcony, the city glittering beneath her. She had everything she was owed. But what would she take next? That was a question no one could answer. Not yet. But the war had only just begun. The sands are slipping through the hourglass for Liam Spencer, or so it seems. In recent weeks on The Bold and the Beautiful, a storm has gathered over one of the show's most conflicted, beloved, and chronically torn characters. But this time, it's not about choosing between Hope and Steffi. It's not about fatherhood drama or corporate sabotage. This time, it's life or death. A diagnosis. A secret. A tumor. The storyline erupted like a flash flood, quiet and sudden. One day, Liam was caught in the usual whirlwind of family tension and lingering heartbreak. The next, he was sitting in a sterile doctor's office, white walls closing in, listening to words that shattered his world in an instant: inoperable brain tumor. That word inoperable lingered like a curse. But Liam did what Liam always does. He buried it. He didn't want pity. He didn't want panic. What he wanted was control, even as his body threatened to betray him from the inside. So he told no one. Not Hope. Not Steffi. Not Bill. Not Wyatt. Not even Brooke or Ridge, who both had more than enough experience with tragic medical twists and the emotional fallout that follows. He carried the weight alone, speaking only with his doctors, researching clinical trials in the dark, and starting what he believed would be the final chapter of his life, a mission of quiet closure. But Liam Spencer doesn't just fade into the background. That's not who he is, and the bold and the beautiful doesn't let its leading men vanish without a fight. As the diagnosis threatened his future, Liam began tying up emotional loose ends. First, he tried to mend fences with Bill. Their father-son relationship has been anything but stable, but Liam approached him with a softness that caught Bill off guard. There was no shouting, no blame, just subtle forgiveness. Bill sensed something was off, but chalked it up to reflection and maturity. Then came the gentle conversations with Steffi. He visited her unannounced, lingering longer than usual. He played with Kelly like every moment might be the last. He complimented Steffi on her strength, her independence, her ability to lead Forrester International without losing herself. Again, Steffi noticed a shift. Liam seemed subdued, but she let it pass, assuming it had something to do with Hope, or maybe just one more personal storm Liam was weathering in silence. And then there was Hope. Their relationship had already splintered under the weight of lies, miscommunication, and Thomas's persistent presence. But as Liam moved through his final mission, Hope became the sun he couldn't look away from. He watched her from across rooms, left thoughtful messages she didn't fully understand, brought up old memories like he was cataloging them for safekeeping. And though Hope remained guarded, unsure if she could ever trust Liam again after their endless cycles of love and betrayal, she couldn't deny there was something different about him, something quieter, deeper, heartbreaking. Eventually, secrets rot from the inside out. Wyatt, ever intuitive, began noticing Liam's behavior and pushed. One evening, during what was supposed to be a casual drink, Liam broke. He told Wyatt everything: the scans, the timeline, the prognosis, the slim odds. Wyatt was devastated. He begged Liam to tell the rest of the family, to stop carrying this burden like a soldier marching to a war he didn't need to fight alone. But Liam refused. "I need to make peace my way," he said. What followed was a slow unraveling. Wyatt, unable to keep the truth, went to Bill. The father who once tried to control every aspect of Liam's life was brought to his knees by the news. In one of the show's most emotionally raw scenes, Bill confronted Liam and begged to be allowed to help. He offered to fly in specialists from Europe, fund every treatment, move mountains. Liam thanked him, but remained resigned. "It's not about money. It's about time." Word eventually reached Hope. At first, she didn't believe it. She accused Bill and Wyatt of exaggerating. But when she confronted Liam, his silence spoke louder than any confirmation. Her reaction wasn't just emotional, it was volcanic. Anger, sorrow, regret. All the things she never said, all the forgiveness she never gave, now hung between them like smoke. She demanded to know why he hadn't told her, why he chose to suffer alone. And Liam's answer was simple, painful: "Because I didn't want you to look at me like I was dying." From there, the pace accelerated. Doctors offered second opinions. Ridge called in contacts from Switzerland. Taylor, who had survived her own brush with death, reached out, sharing insight, advice, emotional support. Eric, whose past health scare had shaken the family only months before, reminded everyone that diagnoses weren't destinies. Miracles happen. Treatments evolve. Rumors surfaced of a new medical breakthrough trial happening in New York. Bill arranged for immediate access. Liam, torn between accepting hope and bracing for reality, agreed to travel. But in true soap fashion, not before one last sweeping twist. The day before he left, Liam collapsed. At Forrester. In front of Hope, Steffi, Ridge, and half the executive staff. It was a seizure, brief, violent, unmistakable. Hope screamed. Ridge caught her. Bill arrived within minutes. The emergency room turned into a revolving door of desperate family members demanding answers. And just when things seemed most dire, a doctor returned with shocking news. The tumor had shifted. What was once considered inoperable had moved just enough to allow for a surgical attempt. Dangerous, high risk, but possible. Everything froze. Hope clung to Liam's hand. Bill called in every favor he had. The surgery was scheduled in New York. Liam was flown via private jet. And for the first time since the diagnosis, he allowed himself to believe, maybe, just maybe, he wasn't living on borrowed time after all. The operation took 6 hours. Outside the OR, the entire family waited. Brooke, Steffi, Wyatt, Bill, even Thomas. Hope paced, hands shaking. When the surgeon finally appeared, eyes tired but calm, the room held its collective breath. He made it, the doctor said. It's not over. There will be months of recovery, close monitoring, but we got it. Tears. Laughter. Relief like an avalanche. Liam Spencer had just escaped the jaws of death. But in doing so, he had reignited every emotional bond he'd let fade. Hope, by his side, no longer questioned what mattered. Steffi, grateful, stepped back. Wyatt stood taller, ready to support whatever his brother needed. And Bill, for once speechless, simply pulled Liam into a hug and held on. Now, with a second chance at life, Liam must face the aftermath. The things he said. The things he didn't. The people he pushed away. The family he nearly left behind. And most of all, the woman who never stopped loving him, even when it hurt the most. Was it all a dramatic trick of fate to bring Hope and Liam back together? Perhaps. But in the bold and the beautiful, love and survival have always been entwined. And sometimes, it takes a brush with death to remember what's truly worth living for.